I'll go first. You should all know me, but my name is Ronke Olabisi. I'm here at UCI. I got the Career Award in 2018. It was written on wound healing. I had very many advisors telling me that I could not get it on wound healing. And so I think you have to be careful about taking advice from people who aren't traditionally NSF funded, because they may not understand that they will fund things that are health related if you're looking at a scientific question. And so my question was, why does my system heal wounds so quickly? And that's a simplification. And yeah, the award has been pretty great. I got funded by CBET, EBMS. That was a question in the chat. So would one of you like to go next?
Oh, I can go next. So my name is Gloria Adams. My NSF career was funded by CBET as well. And mine is focused on mesenchymal stem cells and looking at their electrical properties and using dielectrophoresis as a cell sorting technique. And I can echo what Ronke just said, because I also was told not to write about, not to submit a grant using mesenchymal stem cells, because some folks don't really like them as stem cells, but you know, it didn't hinder me in getting the NSF Career Award. So take advice, take advice for what it is, and then still do what you need to do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Digman. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering here at UCI. And I got my career award from CBET as well. And it's going to be ending in 2024. So it was a little while ago, but I've learned a lot from this workshop myself regarding how, how things can, you can put things into perspective. And then when I retroactively reflect on my application, see both, things that I did that were similar to all of the advice, and then things that I could have done better. But I'm hopeful, that in being able to work with each person in my group, that, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the application form. So thanks for being here, and thanks for having me.
So are there any questions that are specific to us that you would like to address? Let me see.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would you like people to raise their hand or just call out?
Please just call out, because it's really, there's so many.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. My name is Erika Moore. I'm at the University of Florida. And I was wondering, if you had to distill one piece of advice that was the most helpful as you were putting together your career, what would that be for the audience members today?
So I will start, because I applied for it 3 times. I got rejected the first 2 times. I had no idea why I got rejected. I talked about this a little bit in the beginning. And it was clear that I was writing a project for 5 years. And after that was done, I was going to be moving on to another project. That is not really what the career is about. The career is really you will be known for this work, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be like it's Nobel Prize winning work that nobody else has ever done, but it's going to be the work that you're making a name for yourself in. And so if it's an extension of someone else's work, I don't think that it's likely to be funded. If it is an extension of your postdoctoral work, unless you can establish how you have turned it such that it's you're using approaches that you learned as a postdoc to apply to something new. Like, it has to in some way be your own. That's number one. Number two, I started to get an understanding that the structure, so it needs to be your baby, that's number one, and then your baby needs to be essentially pretty, like, which is the structure that we're trying to learn right now. And what I did, because I didn't have this framework, I went around and I looked for different examples of winning awards. And initially, I didn't have very many people who were working in a similar area, so I contacted people from the award search, and because like NSF awards, because it's government funded, you can request those awards, and I didn't want to request them from the NSF, so I contacted the PIs and I said, look, you know, instead of requesting them from the NSF under the what is it, the Free Information Act, I figured I'd just talk to you, and if there's anything you don't mind sharing. And so then I showed that to my husband, my emails to my husband, and he was like, that's a baller move right there. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, you signaled to them that you were going to get it anyway. And I totally didn't mean to do that, but it's kind of true. But nobody said no. Everybody shared it with me. And one of the things that I would say was super, super helpful was, there was one in particular, and this was actually from a friend of mine, and he's a coach here today, and I'm gonna call him out. James Moon was super helpful. I said, listen, would you mind letting me see your grant? And he did, and I copied his structure. Like, I didn't copy, he's doing something completely different than me. The words in there were not copied. But if he wrote how this will advance the field, I wrote how this will advance the field. Like, his structure became my model for the skeleton of my, and it really helped me to focus my ideas and things. And it was, I think that was the most helpful, because I didn't really have a framework for how this should be written. And I see that Roland has his hand up, so I want to give him a chance to speak.
So one question that comes up often in my group was, what's the difference between NSF and NIH proposals? And how can I get away with talking about addressing a disease, for example, or a biomedical problem in my career award? And my answer to them was, make sure that you pose your solution as addressing a fundamental scientific question, as opposed to solving a disease. And I think that goes along with this idea of transformational science that NSF asks for. So I was wondering if you guys would be willing to share how you did that for your proposals.
So I'll let someone else speak, because I like to talk.
I can go next. I'm sorry if my internet is a little unstable. I'm actually in my office. I don't know why it says it's unstable, but in case you can't understand or hear me, please let me know. I just want to make a comment. Thank you, Roland, for pointing that out. And I think I just went ahead and asked the question in the form of a question. So my approach was, I'm looking at the problem in cancer metastasis, right? This is a big disease, but I didn't focus on the actual disease. But my proposal was a little bit different. I proposed methods in studying this particular disease, but it didn't have to be applied to cancer. It could be applied to many other mitochondrial dysfunctions, for example. So my question, the way I approached and how I went around specifically being disease oriented, I just, in my notes, in my proposal, I wrote, it's important to understand my mitochondrial dynamics and phenotyping, as well as tracking of mitochondria. So what are the questions outstanding in this area, right? And so I just wrote those questions in there and how I was going to answer those questions with my method. So I really tried to hone that message that it was the method is going to answer those questions in biology. So mine wasn't biologically oriented or disease oriented, but that was one approach that I had. I still included the disease. I still included the fact that it was cancer that I was looking at specifically, like invatopodia, and looking at these protrusions in cells. But it was more, how can I answer these questions with these methods that I am, I'm building these tools, these tool sets.
Yeah, I would say I did the same thing. So the motivation, basically like the clinical application was the motivation to the work, but then I asked more basic questions. So like for mine, the focus was, so like for mesenchymal stem cells, they're using a lot of different clinical trials, but they have a variety of different outcomes because they're a heterogeneous population of cells. So the idea that I had, or the idea is like to use a cell sorting technique to refine the population, to reduce the heterogeneity, and then to learn about the functions of different subsets of cells that are present in the stem cell population. So really trying to understand the cell population, and then trying to understand more about the theory of the technique that I use. So like in dielectrophoresis, we can measure electrical properties, but people don't make a lot of connections to what the biological meaning is to those electrical properties. So then I propose studies to like manipulate the cells and look at how those electrical properties change, and to see if we can like broaden, or if we can make the generic definitions of membrane capacitance and like cytoplasm conductivity a little more specific to cell function. So, having like the clinical health part of it as the application, but then like what are some basic science questions that you can ask and answer with your technique or methods?
I would agree. I wanted to research. I had found a really interesting result where a dual cell method was accelerating wound healing in this diabetic chronic wound model. I mean, you cannot get more disease than that, right? Like, it was actually diabetic mice, and they were having slow healing wounds, and my application was to close those wounds better. And it was working, and it was working faster than expected. And my application was why. That was essentially it. Like, this is working. We don't know why. Let's find out why. And all of the questions were aimed at discovering why. And so there were scientific questions to a translational wound healing, essentially dual cell therapy within a biomaterial. Sorry.
Those are great. Good thing you guys weren't all in the same group
Right.
of proposals, because I wouldn't know who to pick.
Also, if I could circle back to the question about like the one piece of advice. So I would say, like, if you have someone in your circle who's like not an engineer, they can read your proposal. So I had someone who literally, like, maybe like the day or two before it was due, and I had him, he's a information computer science person, but he's also like he wanted to be a librarian at some point. So reading books and everything, like, that's what he does. And so I had him just proofread it. He didn't have to understand the science, but he helped just massage some of the language that I used to make it just softer and nicer. So if you have someone like that in your circle who can read it, I think that like that makes a huge difference. Like, he added commas where I needed commas. He took out some extra words that I didn't need. He added some words in that I did need. And so just having someone who can just read it from that point of view and not necessarily about the science, I think is super important.
Could not agree more with that. That is absolutely right. Have many people read what you write, especially people who are far afield from you, but smart, right? That sounded like that perfect person, Taloria, right? Smart, but not in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think there's some messages in the chat. would you mind just like unmuting and asking, because I can't necessarily see them right now. Some questions.
I'm also happy to read it in case they can't unmute. Okay.
I can ask, sorry. So
Okay.
what were the most unexpected or annoying, difficult critics you got from the reviewers?
Oh, so for the rejections, because you're not going to get annoying ones if it's
Yeah.
so okay, so this is something that is also, and this is something that you should also be aware of. So if the NSF comes saying, after you have submitted it, and they say, we would like some more information. Initially, when I got that, I was like, come on, why should I do this if you're not going to give me the money? If they ask you, they really want to give you the money. So don't, I'm really glad that at that point, because I was like, I have so much other stuff to do. You're not going to give me the money, because I'd seen people who had gotten awarded. And so I thought I was beyond the deadline. But if they're asking for more information, they need to justify it. And there's a couple of things that weren't clear. And so you want to prioritize that. And when I told my chair, he was like, get on that like yesterday. And I've seen that happen with several other people where they got asked for more information and then 2 months later they were awarded. And yeah, that is something that is not annoying. That is something that you should be excited by. That's number one. Number two, the critiques that I got, I didn't understand that they were, because they said someone, like one of the ones was someone else has already done a lot of research in this field. And that was for the one where I was like, so let me back up and tell you what it was about. So one of the things I do in addition to wound healing, I do tissue engineering. And so the wound healing I'm doing is tissue engineering of skin. It's really a tissue engineering approach to heal this wound. But I also do wound healing in bone, not wound healing, tissue engineering in bone. And I do tissue engineering of retinal tissues and things like that. And so initially, I had been long fascinated by seashells and specifically mother of pearl. After I saw this story about this tooth, that these 3 teeth that were the first bone implants ever from the 7th century that the Maya had done, and there was a fragment of this person, and these bone implants lasted like longer than the person lasted by thousands and thousands of years, and we have tooth implants that fail. Right. And so when this was discovered, there was a flurry of research in this area, and I wanted to research it from a biomaterials perspective, whereas other people had researched it from a biological perspective. And the critique I got was that there was a lot of research already completed in this field, and it was unclear how this would be get me much more than like 5 to 7 publications. And I didn't understand why that was such a bad thing, because I was like, you could always research more in this field. But others had made their name in this field. I could not make my name in an area of looking at seashell as a bone implant, because it really had been fleshed out from the biological perspective. It doesn't matter that it hadn't been from the biomaterials perspective, because my contribution, there is really no way that it could have been that I would become known for that. It wasn't my baby. It was somebody else's baby that I wanted to babysit for 5 years. And that's the best way that I could describe it. But I didn't understand it. And so the first time around, I really rewrote it like it was going to the same people. And then when I got the same criticisms, I was like, but I addressed your, and it's not going to go to the same people. It goes to different people, and they'll never have read it before, and they'll still be like, this isn't something that she can be known for. This isn't her baby. She's baby napping. Did you guys get annoying, or did you get it the first time around?
I actually applied 3 times, and the first time I applied to a completely different section, not CBET. it was biochemistry and biotechnology, which I thought the biotechnology was where I should be. But I did get an annoying comment in that section, which was, this was a comment. She's going to be using, and then my proposal was completely different as well. I was going to look at protein dynamics in cells and using correlation spectroscopy. So I really wanted to understand protein concentration and some kinetics of the protein binding. And so I proposed to use image correlation spectroscopy. And then the comment was, why doesn't she just do Western blots? So I'm like, that's the whole reason I want to use these other technologies, is because first you could do them in live cells and so forth. But then when I talked to the program officer, I started realizing that I just was in the wrong section. So don't make that mistake. Really do talk to your program officers. That was like a really novice mistake. I hadn't attended any of these workshops like you all had. I was just going in, pretty much with my eyes closed and not knowing what I was doing. But then, after some time, I gained more information. I went to more workshops. I learned from folks who had gotten NSF grant funding. And the second time I applied, it was thrown out because I didn't report prior NSF funding. And it was one of the items that you had to report that if you had NSF funding. And so it didn't meet, it didn't pass the administrative, let's just say, I guess, quality check. So that was the second time. And then finally on the third time, I talked to my program officer. I said, is this the right study section for me? And just going forward with more of that and having more people read my proposal. And that really, really did help a lot. So I had a reviewer who was not anywhere science related. And they really gave me some fantastic criticism, like positive criticism, constructive criticism on my broader impacts and how to rewrite all of this in a way that was more for the general audience, and my scientific writing as well changed for more of a general audience. So I learned a lot that way.
Yeah, so I humbly say that I didn't have to go through, I just went through one round of submitting the NSF. But what I think something else that's good to do is make your document searchable. So like your project description, like make the searchable. So the keywords like intellectual merit, how you're advancing your field, like what's novel about your work, like all those little keywords that you see show up in the program announcement, use those words in your description, in your project description, so that if someone wanted to just like search and be like, oh, do you have your intellectual merit? Did you talk about it beyond just the project summary? Like they could search that in your document. I think that makes a big difference for reviewers and going through that process. So make your document searchable. Also, so if there's not another question, I would say like spend time on your budget. The budget takes time, and make sure you budget appropriately. I don't feel like I budgeted my career award that well. So spend time on the budget.
Also, speaking of that, because that was one of the things that I got when they asked me for more information. I was trying to maximize funds for the research. And when they asked for more information, they said she has only budgeted $10,000 for an hourly graduate student. And one of the things that like the grants person told me afterwards, she was like, you cannot enter it now because there is no cost sharing, but in your resources, you can state that because the people that I was going to use were people who were part of this program, like this fellowship program that I didn't really need to budget for because of the I think a biomedical training program, and they wanted to rotate into people's labs and work with them and stuff like that. And that could have been put in as resources. But because I didn't put it as resources, I can't then say that they're paid through another mechanism, so I don't have to pay them. Because that's cost sharing, that's not allowed, and all of those kinds of things. So if you have like undergrads that are free and that's how you're going to use it, so you're not budgeting for, say, a graduate student or a postdoc, then you need to put that in your resources. And that would have saved me, like, because I had to rebudget my grad student support for 20,000. I think it was per year, 20,000 per year, so that it looked, because they said she doesn't have the support to do that. If that makes sense. And so people can be resources too. Okay, so because the chat isn't necessarily going to be recorded and all of this is recorded, can you state the question that you were answering so that people...
So in the chat, a question was asked for me to expand on what I meant by spending time on the budget. And so I was just saying, like, so I actually just pulled up my budget. And so I put a lot of money in, like $19,000 per year for supplies. And I think that is, depending on what you're doing, it could be a little excessive. And I wish I had put more money on the student support, because I think I did like 30% effort for a GSR, which means that, like, you know, I pay money out of my startup funds to cover the additional costs for that. So I would actually budget like 100% effort for graduate student support rather than like 30% effort. I wasn't super clear on what all that meant when I set up my budget. So that's what I meant. I would put more towards student support and less toward, not less, but if you need that much money for supplies, then add it in. But if you don't, I would put it towards students.
And I think the question was asked yesterday about effort. And at the time I did it, I had no idea what that meant in any way, shape, or form. I just picked out a number, and in later applications, I have been criticized on this PI doesn't because you don't say, I'm going to stop working because I've gotten my so-and-so month. So I just thought it was like, I don't want to put that much effort in because I don't want to take money from my grant. I want it all to go to this, but that's not how it's viewed. It's viewed as you're not reserving enough time for yourself to be committed to the grant. Like I was like, I'm not going to be greedy. I don't need this big salary, blah, blah, blah. That's not, you need to have enough effort that looks like you are working on it. And NSF's maximum is 2 months. Now, if you are in engineering school, and this is like stuff that I've just found out as well, you can very easily do 3 summer months total. So if you do 2 months on your NSF summer effort, right? The next grant you get, the most you can do is 1. And then beyond that, to be able to work in academic months, you have to do, depending on your institution, this trading thing that is still not entirely clear to me. And it becomes so like, if you're gonna budget for 2 months effort, be aware of that in your next grant application, that you only have 1 left before you have to start understanding like the special rules for being able to tap into academic months support. And Michelle may know more about that trading stuff than I do, but it's still like, I was like, I'm going to worry about that after my next grant, because right now I just can't, I don't have the time to understand all of the budget stuff.
Yeah, I think that just depends on your academic institution. So here at UCI, we have something called Negotiated Salary Trial Program, which is a compensation request to negotiate the salary if you were overcommitted for summer salary, and to be able to transfer that into the quarter, in our case, the quarter system. but it does require approval, and that has to go through AP, so academic personnel for that. And if there are, already, I guess, written agreements with the funding agency as well, if they accept this kind of transfer for their funds to be used in a given way. So it is all dependent on the university that you're at or the institution you're at, and then the funding agency.
Which you should not have to worry about if this is your first grant. Just worry about the 2 months. You can't go over that for NSF. Okay, I see that there's like more chats coming. If you have a question in the chat, please just unmute and ask it.
So I kind of have a question about, finding your right program. So Michelle, you kind of talked on this, that you went to the wrong program to begin with. Do you have any experience of when you've reached out to program directors kind of getting the hot potato treatment where you're kind of bounced around a bunch? And at what point do you find, like, you sit down and you work with how to make it fit? And at what point do you just leave and go find another program?
Great question. Thank you, Kathleen, for that question. So I was actually told by the program officer, the original one, if you don't find that this is your, your program, try for X, Y, and Z. And they gave me other ones to apply for. And then they said, oh, but you have to take in mind that you have to incorporate whatever it is that their main goals are to fund. So you can't just put technology into that without actually doing, like, modeling or whatever that program does. So what I decided to do, I didn't go and talk to those folks because I already knew from the description on the website that was not what I was going to propose. So I just went to colleagues that did similar research to what I did and asked them, do you have an NSF grant? Not a career, just any NSF grant. And they told me which programs they had applied for. And so that's how I at least narrowed down which topic that would be best suited for my proposal. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's how I found this particular area of research and study section.
That helps. I guess kind of as a follow-up, once you found that section, when you talked to that program director, they're like, yes, it fits? Or did you need to, okay. I didn't know if you then needed to work with them to make it fit.
No, it was like, yeah, this will fit. This is definitely what our, our program funds. So I said, okay, I fit here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm a bad example because I didn't talk to anybody beforehand, and I should have. So don't do that. That's probably what led to me getting rejected the first couple of times as well, because they would have been like, they would have told me more. But for the third one, I looked, because I was doing a lot of searching on the award search site, and in the face of so much advice saying you're not going to get anything done in wound healing, I searched for wound healing awards, and almost all of them seemed, well, almost all of the ones that I found, I should say, were in CBET under EBMS, Engineering of Biomedical Systems. And so I was like, okay, why not? And so that's where I went. I should have then talked to the program director, but yeah.
I'm also not a good example. I didn't talk to a program officer either.
Yeah, don't do what we did. Do what Michelle did. Don't be like us.
Yeah, I took a gamble.
So in taking the gamble and not talking to somebody first, had you previously submitted to NSF after interacting with program directors, or did you have prior experience with NSF before submitting your career?
Me?
Either of you.
Okay, Taloria, you take it.
So I had a postdoc fellowship through NSF. So I had experience submitting that, but I won't. I only when I submitted my career award, that was the first time I submitted it.
The experience that I had was, I think the reason that I didn't was because I think at the time my program director was potentially overcommitted, because I think I sent them like a project summary at one point, and I was still fairly new, that I didn't have an understanding of the vast amounts of email that busy people get. And so I think I sent one email, and then I was like, they didn't email me back, blah, blah, blah. And I was very, very new still. And so I don't think I followed up. I don't think it was that program director's fault. I think it was just my not understanding how, like right now I have 5,000 unread messages. Like I didn't understand that that can happen. And so I think, like, knowing what I know now, I probably would follow. I definitely would follow up with repeated emails, and probably a call. But at that time, I didn't have any experience other than being rejected. So
Yeah. And I'll add, like, I had really good examples. I had 3 NSF Career Awards that I had access to, that helped me like structure and get mines together. So like, yeah, I feel like I have a really good template that Ronke shared with me. So
and my template was based on one that James shared with me.
yeah, so I should tell James thank you as well.
James, I did not send your proposal. It was just
No.
mine that was copied up.
That's right.
Yes.
But yeah, examples are really good. And because people structure them very different. I had 3 examples that were very different in just like the setup and the headings that were used. And so it makes a difference to have those.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So how long do you think you spent on your career award for the one you got funded for? Like, because I've done it once and I think I didn't spend enough time, but I wasn't sure, like, how long do you think you should plan and how long do you think you should spend writing?
So
you go ahead.
So I submitted mine during I submitted in 2020. So we were like at home, pandemic, nothing was happening. So I think I spent a lot of time. I spent the whole summer. I spent the whole summer working on it. Definitely like June. And I worked from June to August. I worked on it and I was kind of like working on it daily, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, at least 2 or 3 hours a day. But I'll tell you, like, if you look at the version of what I submitted, if you look at the version of my proposal like a week before it was due versus the version of it 2 days before it was due, it was very different. But yeah, I worked like the whole summer on it.
So it's due in July. So you worked the whole summer and then submitted the next year, or?
No, so during 2020, they extended the deadline to August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So you're not going to have that. I can't remember how long I worked on it. It was a blur of so much stuff. I will say though, it was probably a lot because I had been trying to get it funded by NIH. And so I had all of this raw material that I had been working towards, because like I was like, my NSF is going to be my seashell project and my NIH is going to be my wound healing project. And then I was like, you know what? The seashell project is not my baby. This is my baby. Let me try to see if I can make a scientific question out of it. So I had a lot of material already written. I just had to come up with a scientific question as opposed to a medical question. So it's, yeah, I can't really say how long that took because it was years of writing towards.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions, unmute, because if there are no questions, we can start the session, the next part early, which is just a 10-minute part. So this is taken from the faculty diversity website. And one of the things that they try to do is they try to get you to stop thinking of a mentor as a global person that will try to help you do everything, like you are under them and they're teaching you everything that you possibly need to know. Because if you ask somebody, will you be my mentor? It's a daunting task for many people, and they're like, I am too busy to teach you all of everything that I need to know. However, if you ask somebody, hey, do you have 15 minutes to give me some advice on how to get published in Nature? Almost everybody's going to have the 15 minutes to go out to coffee, and then they've become your mentor on how to get into Nature. Can you give me 20 minutes and look over my summary page? They've got the 20 minutes, and then they've become your mentor on your summary page. And so the idea is to surround, this is you in the center, as opposed to some, godlike mentor at the top, you in the center. And these are all of the different mentors that you surround yourself with. And I will drop a link to that in the chat. It's really helpful to fill out, because then you'll know, okay, I want people who will read my proposal. I'll fill this out for the people who will read my proposal. They're departmental colleagues. Maybe I know somebody who got a career award and she hired a professional editor, and she got the names of different editors from different people, the senior faculty who are willing to read it, or just people as you go to conferences, you should be able to fill this up as well. Some people I know, their parents are professors in this, so they got their mom to read it, or people who can just read it, like, does this grammatically make sense, even if you don't understand the science? And so the idea is to gain a network of people who, even if they don't know that coffee helped you in immeasurable ways, they have become pillars to your success. So the National Research Mentor Network, right? And they'll tell you what they're about. You can sign up to get a mentor. Like if you're junior faculty, you say, I want to get somebody who is committed to mentoring me. This can be a virtual mentor. You'll find a person. It's kind of like a dating app, but for mentors, especially if you, sometimes we fall into the trap where we're like, well, they're really busy. I don't want to bother them, so I'm not going to ask for help from this senior professor because I asked for them once a week ago, right after they had gotten out of class, and they haven't gotten back to me. So yeah, these people are committed to being a mentor. You are not bothering them. So if that is the thing that you tell yourself, this is a great, network of people who will meet with you. You can choose guided mentorship. Well, they'll meet with you on a regular basis and they guide you to this goal. Or you can also choose just unguided, where you just kind of check in. And so I will pop this in as well. This is for junior faculty. I'll pop this into the chat and you can log in and you can join, and then you can have a regular mentor who fits your criteria through their essentially dating app, where they join you. Where is the chat with these people? So I'm looking for here's the chat, so I can pop that in there. Okay. And so that is the goal. You should be having somebody read your, and if it's through the NRMN network, if it's through people that you have been assigned, if it's through people who, like, even if they don't know what Carl has been talking about, like they haven't been trained, they know how to review awards. They're the people who review awards. And so they're going to tell you if it feels right or if it doesn't feel right. And I think one of the best examples I got was that a lot of people don't know what rhetorical moves are, but they know when they don't get it, right? So if I say, oh, look at the cat and the dog, they were just about to you know that you're waiting for something, right? And that's what the same with this type of writing. The reader is expecting a thing, and if you don't give it to them, they're going to know when it's not there. And so your mentors will be able to help you know when something's not there. And Carl's teachings are meant to help you know what that is. Okay, and so with that, let's close. We're at 1:02. I can't express my thanks enough to all of the coaches and all the participants for showing up and doing all of this. And so thank you everyone.